So today, YieldMax announced their distributions for Group 1. So I'm going to go through and we're going to find out what they're paying out in Group 1. I'm also going to go ahead and update my spreadsheet to show those distributions and to find out what my real price per share is at the current time. And at the end, I want to go ahead and show you an option call that I did sell today that I will be earning some price appreciation on. Hello, my friends. This is Legend. So today, Group 1 announced their distributions. We're going to go through those along with a few other sheets that I did get from Defiance and RoundHill and find out what each one is paying out, update my spreadsheet with those distributions, and then we'll end the video showing an option call that I did sell today. So if you enjoy this type of content, please make sure to hit that like button as it does help this channel out. All right, we're going to start right off with the YieldMax Group 1 announcement sheet. This is for December 23rd. It has an X date of the 24th and the pay date will be the 26th. And the reason being, of course, is because of the holiday. Christmas being the 25th, markets will be closed. Therefore, the payout date will not be until the 26th. Now, I'm going to go ahead and update my spreadsheets just to try to stay ahead of things, even though that money necessarily will not actually show up in my account until at least by that pay date. And most of the time in my account, it's after that. But by entering them in now, it can help me try to stay up to date on my spreadsheets as we're going throughout the week. So we're going to start right off here with Chippy for 44 cents, Feet for 22 cents, Fivey 15 cents, GPTY 29 cents, LFGY 28 cents, QDTY 35 cents, RDTY 34 cents, SDTY 26 cents, SLTY 49 cents, Alti with 57 cents, YMAG 9 cents, and YMax with 9 cents as well. All right, now these are for the RoundHill ones that I do have an announcement sheet for. And the X date is the 24th with the pay date the 26th as well. The first one being YBTC for 85 cents, YETH 20 cents, XDTE for $1.38. That's a pretty nice distribution. QDTE for $1.91. And both of those are massive distributions. We have RDTE for 39 cents, MAGY for 35 cents. Now out of these, I have QDTE. I did have XDTE, but I did sell that one. So out of these, I only have QDTE. And of course, in YieldMax, I have Alti and YMax. Now let's move over to the Defiance funds and let's see what they're paying out. The Defiance funds has a X date of the 24th and the distribution date the 26th. First one being IWMY for 11 cents, QQQY for 13 cents, WDTE 18 cents, GLDY 18 cents, USOY for 5 cents. Then we have AMDU for 19 cents, ETHI for 9 cents, HIMY for 13 cents, HOOI for 18 cents, MST 9 cents, PLT 17 cents, SMCC for 10 cents, and QLDY for 18 cents. And the last one for Defiance is YBMN for 46 cents. And that's all the ones that I have distribution announcement sheets for. So now let's just go ahead, jump right over, and let's update my spreadsheet and see what my new real price per share is and where I'm currently setting. All right, so here we are on my spreadsheet, and this is my Rev 4 Stock Tracker Spreadsheet, and this is now available in the Discord to all my Discord members. So if you do not have a copy yet, you can come over, join the Discord. where you can get a copy of the new Rev 4 distribution sheet. This one does include the real price per share calculator to help you decide if it's a good time to buy, if it's worth buying those shares at that price for, and how many shares you need to get down to a certain real price per share that you're looking for, which is pretty helpful when you're trying to decide how many shares you need and at what price you would like to get it at. The new Rev 4 also has all of the links from the summary page to the individual sheets themselves, where you can just hover over that ticker, click the link, and it takes you straight to the individual sheet for that ticker. And then, of course, to get back, it's simple just to hover over and click the link to take you right back to the summary. And each ticker is linked to the individual sheet. And as you can see, you can have up to 20 tickers, and I have a total of 14 currently. I've made a few other corrections as far as some of the text, wording, and the gain-loss calculation here. It also still has those income charts, and all of this is automatically filled in once you enter in your information into the individual stock tracker sheets. It will populate that summary page. It will populate the income charts. So it takes care of all of that for you. And I also went ahead and I created another little tab here just for fun where you can compare two stocks. Now you can put any ticker into the first slot here and then the second one into that second slot. You create your start date and it will just chart it out for you from that start date to today's date. Now this only will chart out the actual price movement. It does not take into account any distributions or anything like that, as that is a limitation of Google Sheets. But it's still fun just to put in a couple different tickers just to find out how it's been moving as far as price-wise. But as we know, with these high yield ETFs, just looking at the price really isn't enough information, as you really need to see also what those distributions are. But it's just for fun, and I figured I'd throw that one in there as well to go along with that Rev 4 distribution stock tracker sheet. So let's just go ahead and update those distributions for each of the ones that I do have. And we'll start right off here with Alti. I can just jump right over to that sheet and I can enter in the information straight into that sheet. And when I'm done, go right back to the summary, go to the next one. Pretty simple, makes it nice and easy and very efficient. So I'm going to enter in the date, and this will be the X date. Now granted, this is the 23rd that I'm entering this into it. Now the X date will be the 24th. So I'll enter in 12/24, and I'm going to enter in that distribution price that we showed on that announcement sheet. And one thing I do want to show you is we are coming up on about 4 distributions on Alti. So where we were showing roughly a 42-cent distribution average over the last 4 distributions, it was accounting for one of those 4 being this 5 cents, which was bringing that average down. And therefore that payoff time period needed was 96 weeks. Okay. But once I enter in the new distribution, now it's going to be a little closer to what it's actually going to be, because this is closer to what we would actually somewhat expect per week, which is around that 50 cents area. Not guaranteed, but it is now after the point of that reverse split. So we'll enter in that 0.5705. And by entering that price, you can see now our average is 54 cents. And that previous 96 distributions, it just dropped down to 74. So this is going to be closer to what we can expect. Now it's showing an average of the last 4 being 54 cents, which that is pretty close to about what we're seeing, right? Because the last 4 being 58, 54, 49, 57. So that average is 54, And that's what it's going to use to estimate what that payoff time period would be. And that currently would be about 74 weeks. Now, how many shares can I count for this distribution? I can account for all shares before 12/24. And my last purchase being 12/17, I can account for all those shares. And the total shares I have is 43 shares. So I enter in the 43 into this slot. And that real price per share now goes from $40.45 down to $39.88. And with Alti current price of $39.31, I'm getting very close to that break even, right? Once I get to that price of that current price, it's at a break even. Once my real price per share is under the current price, then I'm actually starting to make money if I was to sell those shares. Because until I get it to the paid off status, which means I earn in distributions as much as I have invested, then I'm technically not making any money until that happens. At least the way that I'm playing these high yield ETFs. Because if I have $1,900 invested and in distributions I've earned $270, well, that difference tells me that I still have $1,700 at risk. So therefore, that is how much I stand to lose. I have earned back $270 out of that $1,900, so I still have that $1,700 at risk. But that's why I play it the way I'm playing it. I look and push to get these things paid off. Now, these NAs over here, that will fix itself once we reach 12/24, okay? Because today is 12/23 and it's late, but it's not reached 12/24 yet, so therefore it cannot pull a closing price for 12/24 because we're not there yet. But I'm doing these updates to try to stay ahead and to keep you more informed of what my real price per share is. So moving on, I'll go right back to that summary page, and then we'll just scroll right over to YieldMax, as we did earn a distribution on this one. And for this one, since the current price being $10.38 and my real price per share being $7.90, I am actually in the green for this one. Meaning that if I were to sell all my shares, I would make $1,800. Okay? So, and that is before I even enter in my distribution. But let's just go ahead and enter that in, and let's keep this thing rolling. So we'll enter that date again of 12/24. And just like before, it's showing we have 73 distributions left with a 10-cent average over the last 4 distributions. Let's just see if that changes. Because that new distribution is a little lower, and that's 0.0944. How many shares? That's 758 shares. And since I entered in that 9 cents, it did adjust that average and therefore caused that distribution payoff period to actually increase by 1. So as this does scale up or down, it does affect those distribution payoff periods, okay? Because that is just an estimate. And as that average changes, so does the estimated payoff period. So do not take this as a 100%, I only need 74 weeks to get it paid off, because if that distribution changes, whether it goes up or down, it will change how long it takes to get it paid off. It could go in your favor and it could go against you, right? But I have 758 shares, and therefore my real price per share of $7.90 now becomes $7.81. And that current price of $10.38, I'm setting very nice with this one. If I was to completely close out of YieldMax at the current price of $10.38, I would clear $1,948. Not too bad at all. Going back to the summary, we can go to QDTE, enter in the date, and for QDTE, it announced $1.91. I'm going to enter that in. But if they send out a correction for that, I'll have to correct this, because that just seems like a lot. So I don't know, there may have been a typo, but I'm going to enter it in, but I'm going to pay attention to see if that does change. But according to that announcement sheet, we made 1.915136, and that is one heck of a distribution. Maybe it's a Christmas present, right? I'll take it. How many shares do we have? We have 155 shares. So therefore, my real price per share of $26.90 now becomes $24.98. And again, if that $1.91 ends up being incorrect and it's corrected on a new announcement sheet, I will go back in there and adjust this to that correct dollar amount, and that will also adjust and correct my real price per share. But currently at $24.98, I am way under that current price of $34.78. But even before that distribution, I was under that current price. So I am good with QDTE. Going back to the summary, we got IWMY on 12/24.1188 distribution, and we have 551 shares. So therefore that real price per share of $16.36 now becomes $16.25. Current price of $20.36, setting pretty nice with this. QQQY, and for QQQY, we've got a distribution for this one as well. 12/24 for that date and 0.1390 for that distribution. And I have 551 shares for QQQY as well. And therefore my real price per share of $20.94 now becomes $20.80. And with that current price of $24.02, I'm setting nice with this one. And this is what I'm talking about. I'm staying ahead of it. And a lot of people said you can't stay ahead with these high yield ETFs. And if you don't play them correctly, I do agree with that statement. They are difficult to stay ahead of. It does matter when you first got in, and it does take a little work to get that down, and it does take time. But I do not suggest anyone follow what I'm doing, nor do I suggest that you get into any YieldMax, Defiance, or RoundHill funds, because if you do not play them right, you will take a loss. But with QQQY, I'm setting quite nice with this one as well in the current state. And the last one that I'll receive a distribution on is WDTE. Scroll down here, we're going to enter our date of 12/24 with that distribution of 0.1854. How many shares? 540 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $27.43 now becomes $27.24, and the current price being $32.26. I am staying ahead of any price decline and such with WDT as well. And as you can see, if I were to sell all my shares at the current price, I would make $2,700. So even though people are losing money with these high yield ETFs, I'm currently overall in the green. Knock on wood, right? But going back to my summary page, just to wrap up this part of it, you can see if we go back to the beginning, the ones that I am down on are Coney, Alti, SMCY, and Hui. Now Hui, I'm just barely down, right? It did drop down a little bit, but it dropped down to $50.50. I'm at $50.52 of a real price per share. So it is in fact above that current market price. Therefore, it will show it as red. But if I get a distribution and if Hui trades sideways, then I'll be back to being green again. And if Hui drops on down, I might be able to buy some shares. But that is how I am playing these. Okay, so those are the only four that I am red on or down in. The rest of them, as you can see, they're all green. I'm showing how much I would make if I were to sell out of that position and that percentage that I am up in the play. And then the very bottom down here, it will calculate your estimated payoff period to get that ETF paid off. But of course, that number is only true if you are playing these high yield ETFs the correct way. And as you can see, the next one due for a payoff in my portfolio will be Platy. As Platy, I only need an estimated number of distributions of 6. So 6 more distributions, and this is an estimate, right? But in 6 more distributions, I should be close to, if not paid off on PLTY at that current average distribution. And then the rest of them looks like I've got a little bit left to go. Some of them a year, some of them over a year, right? As JEPQ is about 7 more months, QDTE 37 more weeks, and in some cases 144 weeks to get paid off. But like I said, if I were to sell out of these at that current price on like QQQY, I'm going to make $1,700. Now that would be a different story if that was a minus $1,700, but it's not. Currently, if I sold it at that current price, I'm going to make money on it. So if you don't have a copy of this and you would like to get a copy so that you can track your real price per share to help determine if you buy more shares, would it help you out or not? Now, I'm not suggesting that you put any more money into these high yield ETFs, and I'm not suggesting that you put any money into these. That is your choice. I'm only showing what I am doing and how I am combating against a price decline because of the high yield. The price does decline over time. But as you can see, if I were to sell out of the entire portfolio here, I would make $18,390. And that's if I sold all of my ETFs. And that's not too bad at all. So come on over, join the Discord, get your copy of the Rev 4, and then you'll also get notifications of any purchases I'm making on any of these high yield ETFs, along with any other stock purchases that I make, and also any option plays that I'm doing. And speaking of option plays, I did sell a call today, and it looks like those shares are going to get called away. And what am I talking about? And that's my favorite SPY. I was assigned those shares on SPY on Wednesday, so almost a week ago. And I was assigned those shares at $674 per share. And it was on this candle right here. As you can see, that big candle that dropped out, and it went as low as 671.20. So with the 674 put, meaning that I was agreeing to buy those shares at $674 per share, and it closed at 671.20, they took me up on that and assigned me those shares at 674. But what did it do the next day? It popped up, right? I was actually able to sell a call a couple times, and both of those were not exercised and therefore expired worthless. But today, okay, and this candle here is on today, and I'll also point out how I picked that strike. But to see this a little bit better, let's look at that 5-minute chart. And here we are on the 5-minute chart. So the first thing, of course, that I do is I draw my upper and lower points of the trading from yesterday. And as you can see, it did drop down to about right here. So I did draw my line across the bottom of that wick. And then where was the upper part? Well, that upper candle actually did not hit until these after hours here. And it got up to 685.55. So I drew my upper part right there. So now I have my max and min. And I was looking for the opening of today. I wanted it to break above this 685.55. And looking at this 5-minute chart, you can see it did. And I had a 686 call set, right? And I was asking about $1 in the premium. Well, it went up and it got up to about 90 some cents, and then it fell, right? And it fell down below it. And I thought, wow, I missed out on that one, didn't I? But that's okay. It was still early, and you never know what the market's going to do. But look what it ended up doing. It actually turned back around. And as it started moving back up and hitting this bit of a resistance line right here with those candles, as you can see right here with those candles, it started bumping that resistance line. So I was more concerned of it not being able to break it. So what I did was I changed that premium around that 11 o'clock area. as it was going, and it did break up above it. And since it was kind of coming up to the high of the point right here, I figured it might be getting pushed right back down. So I did drop my premium from about that dollar down to about 81 cents, okay? Times 100 shares, so that would be 81 bucks in my pocket. And eventually you can see that it did start moving up, and eventually it did fill that order. But this thing just kept on going, didn't it? It went all the way up, and it ended up closing at 687.96. Now, that call that I had back here, I was earning that 81 cents premium per share, and I had it set at 686 for that call, okay? Because I wanted to set it right above this line, and this line being 685.55, so that next strike price above that would have been 686. So that is where I set that, because I thought, well, if it does come up, it's possible it might come on back down, and I would not get my shares taken away and be able to do it again on another day. But it just kept on going, and it did. It went all the way up, and it closed at 687.96. So with my 686 call, looks like those shares are going to get called away. So I will end up having to sell my shares at that 686. Better yet, they'll be taking my shares and paying me the 686 per share. But remember, I purchased them at 674. So what is that difference? Well, that's 686 minus 674, that's $12. And that's $12 per share times 100 shares. Well, that's $1,200. And I haven't even owned these shares for a full week, as I did get assigned these on Wednesday of last week. So making $1,200 in less than a week, and not even counting the premium that I did earn on that put and the calls that I had on SPY. What a nice ride this was. So now, what will I do next? Well, now I'll be looking to set that high and then set that low again right down here, and I'll be looking to sell a put if it does come down and break below yesterday's low. But we'll see how the market reacts tomorrow, as tomorrow I believe is a short day because the following day will be Christmas and they will be closed on Christmas, but will reopen on the 26th. So it looks like the market and SPY is going to give me a little bit of a Christmas present and pay me $1,200 into my account. And all I got to say is thank you and Merry Christmas. Right? So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.